Good evening, TDN listeners and viewers, and of course, the audience for this week in interview. Good night to you. It's a pleasure to be here with you on another episode of this week in interview. Even though our subject over the last 3 weeks or so have not been, I'll just say, we'd rather the circumstances were different. But we've been talking about Passportgate, even though that's not pleasant to talk about. It's still a pleasure to spend time with you. And I really appreciate you for coming back every Wednesday. We have some regular listeners who's been coming back for years now. Every Wednesday, spending an hour. Last couple of times that Alvin with me, we went for 2 hours, and you guys stayed. So thank you for that. Hope you're having a great week. And if tonight is your first time listening to this week in interview, I also hope that you become a regular, because what we do on this week in interview is to bring you contemporary topics, subjects of interest, but bring it to you from a different angle. I always say, if you can get what we do by clicking your mouse or browsing the internet, then there's no need for us. But you come back, and I try to make it interesting and informative, to make sure that if we're talking about health, you have a good understanding of whatever aspect of health we're talking about. If we're talking about social, then you understand it, and you can have a conversation. You can go do more research on your own. You have those tools. And of course, if we speak in politics, then you have a good understanding, have an open mind. Because what is politics? Politics is simply the process by which we choose the people who are going to manage our resources and use them, hopefully, for the benefit of everyone. And of course, if you are from Dominica and some of the other islands as well, now is crucial times for us, because we have some, I describe them as rogues and vagabonds in charge of our countries that are just selling us downriver to the highest bidder. And that might sound harsh, and that might sound, it depends on which side that you're on, but the results speak for themselves. Definitely, results speaks for themselves. So tonight I have someone who is a regular listener on with me as my guest, because I think that perspective, from your perspective as a person who lives in Dominica, or a person who is from the diaspora who visits Dominica or visits St. Vincent or St. Lucia or Antigua or Barbados or Trinidad, I think what we talk about is relevant to you no matter which one of those islands that you're from. And so grab a drink, text or email 5 people, let them know that we are on, and we have a very exciting subject on tap for you tonight. Settle into your favorite chair, have a notebook, because we always have valuable information. And when we come back, I will introduce you to my guest on this weekend interview. So hang tight, we'll be right back. All right. So I hope you have a chance to get your drink, get your pen, get your paper, invite somebody to listen with us. Special good evening to you if you are in Dominica on Nature Isle. You listen to This Week in Interview on DigiPlay Channel 59. The online radio station RVR Jams carries This Week in Interview live. Also in the Toronto market area, Radio Online SBE Radio Online carries This Week in Interview live. A Haitian focused radio station, they carry This Week in Interview live. And of course, if you're listening to us, you find us on YouTube, TDN Network 1 on YouTube. You'll find us. If you don't do Facebook, then there is tdnradio.net, tdntv.net. If you do Facebook, of course, This Week in Interview Facebook page, TDN Radio Facebook page, we're live on there as well. We are on Roku, we are on Instagram, and so on. So I think I got a message from Facebook saying that on This Week in Interview page, not TDN Radio, on This Week in Interview page, around 600 people saw the last program and just on that one channel. So thank you for the continued support. I think on a 7-day basis, we have a couple thousand people who see and listen to This Week in Interview. And so a lot of folks catch it after because there's so many things happening on a Wednesday that people choose what they listen to, and then because we are available on so many media, they definitely go back and listen to This Week in Interview. There's a link on the screen, Linktree, linktr.ee/TDN network. If you share that, it gives you all the different options that you can click on for your favorite choice of listening to or catching This Week in Interview. And so I want to thank you for the continued support. For the last 3 weeks since that report came out from the OCCRP, if you don't know what it stands for, it is Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, OCCRP. They did a series of reports on the Dominica passport sale program. I know some people prefer that you call it citizens by investment, but it's not citizen by investment, it's citizen for sale. It's a passport sale scheme. And they had a report that had so many revealing circumstances in there that I decided that I was going to devote a few weeks of This Week in Interview to keeping the subject live. You know why? Because our governments are ignoring us. The government is ignoring us and think that they don't owe us any explanation. They have no accountability to the government of Dominica. The only time you see these folks come on and try to respond is when there is something international or regional about it. If there's something that's going to affect the image outside of Dominica, then they go on and they say whatever it is that they have to say and give some vanilla excuse. But when it comes to being accountable to the people of Dominica, they don't. They just feel that they owe no explanation to the people of Dominica. And so we decided to take it up and to keep it alive until they do. They might decide that they don't want to take us on for now, but that's how it starts. It will start small, it will start slow, but we will pick up momentum, and eventually they are going to have to come to you and explain to you what these revelations are about. We said if it's not true, then just bring the information out. And when you bring it out, we will see what the facts are and we'll say, oh, those guys were full of smoke. This is the real information. But the fact that you continue to ignore these revelations. Before, when it was done by Lennox Linton, when he was leader of the opposition, they got away easily saying that it was just political gamesmanship and for political gain, and Lennox wished that it was he that was in control of all that money and what he would do with it and all of that they said. But now it is foreign international journalists who are reporting. So I want to know what the defense is. Are those people wanting to put their hands on Dominica money? There's nothing in it for them, but it's their profession. So the government of Dominica owes the people of Dominica an explanation. And I've called it Passportgate to remind Dominicans that the power is with you. When Richard Nixon was president, and he committed the Watergate crimes, he thought he was president, he was untouchable. But the pressure that was put on him ended up with him having to resign and leave office. And therefore, we are calling ours Passportgate because we hope that that lack of accountability can lead to a change, unless that these people can step forward and say, listen, all of you guys are just talking. You don't know what you're talking about. Here's the book. let's release it publicly, show us audited accounts of the CBI. You know what they've been doing? They've been sending their acolytes on their friendly media places, talking about, well, how has the CBI program benefited Dominica? Is the CBI program beneficial to the Dominican economy? That is not the argument. The argument is, how much money did you generate and how did you distribute that funds? Where did you spend it? How much did you spend on X, Y, and Z? That is what we're asking. You know, I said the joke where this guy was working on his car in his garage and his garage was dark. Something dropped in his garage and he went under the lamppost to look for it because that's where the light was. And that's what this government is trying to do, trying to steer you away. Is the CBI program beneficial to Dominica? Is the economy beneficial to Dominica? What are the no? What we want are audited statements of the CBI program that any Dominican, anybody who wishes can go there and see. Okay, for the last 5 years, X number of passports were sold, Y amount of money was raised, so much was paid in fees, and so on. So that's basically what we're asking for. That's what we are looking for. So tonight I have a very special guest. As I said, she's a regular listener. Miss Maslin Edwards is usually on This Week in Interview, and she's interacting and making comments. And so we've for the last couple of weeks we've been bringing you statistics and numbers and all that kind of thing. Maslin has been traveling to some of the islands in Dominica, okay? And so she has recent first-hand knowledge of some of the development, some of the activities that's going on in the islands in the Caribbean, Antigua, St. Lucia, Barbados, and so on, St. Kitts. And then she went to Dominica, and so she has very recent comparison as to how Dominica is doing compared to some of the other islands. Sam, I don't know if you can put up the table before I bring on Maslin. Let's try to put the conversation in perspective. Let's talk. So if you can look, if you can see what's on the screen, it's some numbers. The European Union reported that Dominica sold 34,500 passports in the last few years. Not since inception of the program in the last few years, 5 years or so. And the average price of the sale of one passport is 100,000 US dollars. As a matter of fact, Dominica is being accused of selling the passport too cheap. So sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but $100,000 on average per passport. That means that the country generated in that period of time a revenue of 3.45 billion US dollars. Billion US dollars. From the OCCR reports, it seems as though, based on the numbers that the government, and we have to be guessing all of those numbers and trying to figure them out again because of the lack of transparency. We don't have the numbers exactly, so we have to make deductions. It seems as though 15,000 of those passports are reported. So therefore, what is reported is about $1.5 billion revenue that they're reporting that Dominica has earned over that period of time. And therefore, that leaves a whopping 20,000 passports, or 19,500 passports that's unreported. So folks, this is why we're devoting the time to it, you know. So that means that there is about 2 billion US dollars that has not been reported, as unaccounted for from the Dominica passport sale program, which is equivalent to about 5 billion Eastern Caribbean dollars. 5 billion Eastern Caribbean dollars. That is the estimate in terms of the amount of money that's not been reported. And therefore, you understand why we call it Passportgate. Passportgate, because this, by any measure, in any place, in any circumstance, is a huge scandal. A huge, huge scandal. So that's what Passportgate is about. So I don't want to keep my guest waiting too much longer. She's been waiting patiently while I do this little intro. So let's bring Maslin on. Maslin, it's a pleasure to have you back on. Welcome back to This Week in Interview. Is your mic? Yeah, go ahead. I'm hearing you now.
And a special good evening to you, as well as your technician behind the scenes. Mr. Sam, and especially good evening to your listening audience connected in and around the diaspora, and of course, connected near and far, and all Dominicans on island on this social media platform. I must say, Anthony, it is quite welcoming being your guest for yet another time. And this is the coolest diaspora based radio station, TDN Radio.
Thank you for that.
Yes, welcome. So, thank you for inviting me to discuss some of the burning issues, of course, issues of the heart as they pertain to our dearly beloved homeland, Dominica. So, once again, thank you for having me. And to all your listeners, thank you for coming on so that we can really have a real
Yes.
discussion as it pertains to our CBI.
Yes, a very level-headed discussion. We
Yes,
get emotional, but we're not screaming or screeching. We
of
we
course not.
we are emotional because we're upset,
Yeah,
and we see. I haven't been to Dominica in a while, which is one of the reasons why I'm super excited that you are here, because I have seen you in photos in Dominica multiple times in the recent past, and so you'll be able to correct my perception if my perception from a distance is not accurate. You'll be able to correct my perception of what you see when you travel. Because Maslin, I mean, you see the numbers that I put up, and those
yeah.
numbers are conservative estimates. They're not expected to be less, but they could be more. Reporting $1.5 billion unaccounted for about 2 billion US dollars, 5 billion EC dollars. So Maslin, let's just start there. When you went to Dominica, right? You were picked up from the airport in a, I don't know, what's the fanciest car? In some kind of Mercedes Benz. Everybody's driving a Range Rover. There are these super restaurants. Dominicans are just super happy. Their skin nice and taken care of, and no, they have the best teeth. All of that, right? Because I mean, the country must be flush with money.
Uh, well, I don't know if you have some bionic eyes, or maybe you have great binocular lenses that you saw that from a distance, but I certainly did not see that in Dominica.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, I was appalled that you know after visiting some of the Caribbean islands most recently, what I saw there in terms of the development, take for example the ports of entry, then hmm, I it is very embarrassing when you come in as a Dominican and you travel some of those same ports of entry with some of the passengers who are
So
coming into your
you
country
went on
with
a
you.
cruise, right?
Yes, it
Wow.
is very embarrassing. And for example, when we got into Antigua, no, Antigua is right on the ground there. They have the same CBI dollars. But when I looked at the port where the cruise ship comes in, and when I looked at that bay, that port, there were five cruise ships, mega cruise ships, lined up against each other, and they have this long, nice pier.
Mhm.
You know, it's a nice long walk. You have the bustling shops. You have the Xingping. If something is happening, something is there to welcome you. You feel like you are entering a place where you really want to visit as a tourist. You really want to see what that country has to offer.
Hmm.
So you don't see the dullness and the poverty when you as soon as you hit the ports. And what saddened me is
So
the
so
fact,
no so you were on a cruise ship, right?
yes,
And you're going to different ports.
yes,
And by that time you've made a couple friends and they know you're from Dominica,
oh yes,
right? They know you from the Caribbean. And then you dock in Antigua
hmm
and it's this beautiful, welcoming facility. And you're already feeling proud because by association, Antigua being Caribbean and you being Caribbean, it's almost local. So,
hmm
so you're very proud to disembark into Antigua's beautiful port. I just want to paint that picture. Go ahead.
yes. So then, so you get in there, and then you're saying, "My God," because you meet some of those people on the cruise, and they say they have been to Dominica. When you say, "Well, I'm from Dominica," I have been to Dominica,
Mhm.
and and you know what they have seen there
Right.
because you know what is there. It's not that
Mhm.
you don't know. And for example, Antigua. It's a Dominican. Darwin Telemac is a Dominican who is that port manager.
Yes.
So we have a Dominican that with all that foresight, and he can bring that type of development in terms of their port to Antigua. So what is wrong with Dominica that this man could not have been the manager of a port in Dominica and brought us that same kind of vision? And those are the questions I asked myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
So after having visited those countries, you go to St. Kitts, beautiful port, nice pier, lovely island. You do that tour and you see so many places of development. What caught my eyes in St. Kitts was the Ross University. They have the medical school and they have the veterinary school. And then, you know, I asked myself, where is our Ross University?
I feel like you just push out the knife a little deeper when when you talk about the Ross University that you see in St. Kitts. But Dominicans would understand what I mean when I say the knife went in a little deeper. Go ahead.
Yes, and knowing what happened to Ross University, it's been exported to another country, Barbados. I've been to Barbados as well on that same trip. And all these islands, St. Lucia, all these islands are just so much, it's just different. You're seeing the CBI dollars at work. For example, we went to the botanical gardens in St. Lucia. We had a beautiful tour, great tour in the gardens, a well preserved garden. And then when you come, you're hearing that our botanical garden is just about to be ripped apart.
To
We
be
have
ripped.
only
Hmm.
one botanical garden in our country, and these people are ready to tear it apart, to put some water park nonsense, to put some things that they
Miniature
can develop
golf.
in
Nonsense.
another
You know?
area.
Yeah.
So I am saying all of this to say, why are they just so busy in demarcating Dominica? Everything that is of sentimental value to us as a people, it is just quickly taken out from the face of Dominica. And if you go back to some of our historical instead of upgrading those buildings and make them into a place where tourists can visit, we can have them as special attraction sites, develop them as part of the tourism product like the rest of the Caribbean. We see them being turned into personal properties, changed and turned into personal properties. And I ask, what have we just celebrated and accomplished after 45 years? We talk about 45 years of independence.
Hmm.
Independence, you know, Dominicans have just celebrated their Dominicanness. In my mind, is the Dominicanness. in the same culture of our music, our madras, and the food. And I said Dominicanness because to me there is no independence. There's no independence. There's no freedom. Not in democracy. There's no independence of democracy. Not even in the media. Not in the financial stability in our country. Not even in the right to live, because you see how our indigenous Dominicans, from the babies down to our elderly, are just dying in the hospitals. They're just dying for no apparent reason. They are just dying. So not even the right to live. And those are some of the reasons that force me to make that distinction between political independence and my Dominicanness.
Yeah,
Now,
and Maslin, no, that there is an important part of it, because we 45 years as an independent nation. I remember when I was in high school in the early 80s, at Dominica Grammar School, early to mid 80s, the talk was a country had to discover oil to get um, to a sort of wealth producing thing where you could see huge development. Or if you didn't have oil, then maybe you could do a refinery like how Hess did in St. Croix. Um, People used to talk about water. And so there was this mentality that we were small, we had limited resources, and therefore we couldn't expect to have development beyond a certain level. What do you expect? We're small. You want us to be like America then? What do you expect? We don't have resources. You want us to be like London? That was the kind of mentality that we had coming out of colonialism, where we got independence in 78. And we still had a heavy dose of colonial administration, where it was in their interest to keep us thinking that we were not capable, we did not have, we were inadequate to 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 be on the world stage. So fast forward, right? And in a sense, we strike gold, because who knew? Although I am very, on a personal level, I am very, very, very much against the sale of my citizenship. But that's a different conversation, right? But
mm,
but it was done, and we strike gold. In a few years, we generated, everything being equal, multiple billion US dollars worth of revenue. So the jackpot we're hoping to hit, we hit it, and yet, instead of seeing an improvement in the quality of life, we see a total breakdown of the quality of life. We see our people in despair. And folks are thinking that this is an exaggeration, or you this and you that. But it's
mhm,
not, because I see, first of all, every time I see a video from Dominica, I see my people missing teeth. And in my mind, if that is one mark of a people that's not doing well, it's people that's missing teeth. To me, that is such a marker of good health, because you have enough to take care of your basic health. And I'm not talking about people who are 80 years old, or whatever it
mhm,
is. You're talking about young people and they're missing teeth. You know, um, I was watching a video last week of my village of Castle Bruce.
hmm,
I recognize all the people who are on the video, you know, where a contractor was doing some work on the road and it rained, and they showed tarish aggregate getting washed out and ending up in people's homes, Maslin.
mhm.
And I'm saying, we're in Casabras. The Casabras I remember, I don't remember anybody's house that was in a position where water could wash tarish into your house. You know, and this is not about the people. Cashless people are hardworking people, and I'm sure they're doing the best that they can. But the best that they can seems to take them not very high in terms of quality and standard of living. And so, coming back to saying that we're celebrating 45 years, we call it independence, 45 years since we were given our reins to run our affairs from the colonial people. And many people agree with you, Maslin, that it should not be called independence. It's
Dominicans.
Dominicanness or dependence. People see Chinese having more rights in Dominica than Dominicans. And this is not a xenophobic or racial thing. I am Dominican, and I think that anybody who is not Dominican that comes to Dominica is a guest. And a guest is not supposed to come in your home and be more comfortable than you. You understand what I mean? So that is the perspective from which I'm looking at this. And so let's talk a little bit more about your experiences in some of the other islands. You already talk about the port. I realize you reserve talking about when you entered Dominica port, what it looked like. We get to there. But
Well,
go
well,
ahead. I like
before I really go into the meat of what I really want to say,
mhm,
I think I need to put out a disclaimer on myself,
mhm,
because there is the notion that when you speak about the abuse and the malgovernance in your country, they align it to speaking ill of the country, not being a patriotic Dominican, not loving Dominican, bad talking the country. And they don't realize that the issues is something separate from the country. The, the way the country is governed is something separate from the issues. So when you talk about the level of abuse, you're not you're not bringing down the country, because as a Dominican who understand patriotism and nationalism, I think I have an obligation, that obligation to speak up against the abuses perpetrated on my homeland, be through the CBI program. That is, as we say, this is now the hottest and most corrupted conduit that has channeled the sales of our sovereign assets, which we know are our passports and even our lands. And as a result, this has brought on, you know it's like a financial, political, and economic abuse of our state resources and the citizens who have been left in a state of deprivation. And the deprivation be through the lack of jobs, through healthcare and other basic functions through government, or through the various government institutions that the government has an obligation and responsibility to provide for the citizens. So when I speak because I want a better way of life for my Dominican people. I want better governance where the government is accountable to the people. I speak because this is my country where my sentimental values run deep, and my emotional attachment as a bona fide Dominican, as it relates to the social construction of my homeland, as the object of the primordial attachment, which renders those emotional ties that are quite similar to that of kinship. And of course, my individual national identity becomes tied in symbolically to family. So those
mhm,
are the reasons why, you have that passion to speak out. because there's a good old Russian proverb that says, a person without a motherland is like a nightingale without a song. So, as for how long we are prepared to remain quiet, as to how long our people are prepared to remain submissive and loyal to the government at the helm of the country, while our indigenous Dominicans are spiraling down the abyss of becoming non relevant.
And disappearing. They're dying younger
Non
and younger
relevant
and
and
younger.
dying.
Hmm.
And that is what happens when with the level of deprivation that is in the country. Our healthcare system sucks. 99.9 persons who go in at the hospital, they wind up dying for no particular reason. It is you don't understand what has happened.
It's
But why is
criminal.
it that
It's
why is it
criminal.
that it is, and something should be done, as is either a criminal investigation should be done, or an inquiry should be done and hold persons accountable, because you cannot have your young the young the babies are dying, the unborn and the newborns are dying out. You have the Dominicans who are in the income generating years, young people in the 20s to the 40s are dying as well. You have the elderly themselves are dying, and I'm kind of wondering if this is a form of genocidal cleansing of our indigenous Dominicans, and why why
And when you
and
say
what
indigenous,
happened to CBI?
You don't only mean Caliago. You mean natural born Dominicans who are living in Dominica.
Indigenous Dominicans.
Yes. I
Indigenous
just want to make the
Dominicans.
distinction because we have indigenous people, the Kalinago. But what you're saying is not applicable only to the Kalinago. All
Indigenous
Dominicans are
Dominicans.
suffering from that. Yes. Mhm.
Yes, indigenous Dominicans, because Dominicans, indigenous Dominicans are the Kalinagos, and and the and the
African
natives.
descent. Yes. Mhm.
Yes,
So,
African descent.
so,
So, and
so,
those are the people dying. We don't see the Chinese dying.
right.
We don't see other races dying in Dominica. So you want to tell me the number of Chinese who have evaded, illegally taken over our country, evaded our country. They have taken all our jobs. You know, they have they are the ones receiving, sucking the CBI juices. And you want to tell me that they don't get sick at all? How is that we never heard any of them dying at the hospital? Where do they go when they
Where
get
do they
sick?
go?
Do they
Where do
even
they
get
get health care from? And they're doing construction in Dominica, not in this under the safest circumstances. So when they get hurt, where do they get health care?
where do they get health care? And we have to ask ourselves, why are our Dominicans dying in the hospital? What is it that, through all the CBI dollars that we have, being, operating a different type of economy to a certain set of people? Because it looks like Dominica has two economies. One of Dubai for the so-called, those who suck the CBI milk from the top, and then another economy for the for Dominicans, the masses.
Who are beggars? Martin, I have to take a break right here because it's already, looking at the time, it's already 8:41. Let's get a word from the sponsors. When we come back, we want to continue that conversation because this passport gate thing is serious. The government doesn't feel like it has a duty to give account for anything. And Dominicans have to understand that what you don't inspect never gets respected. If you allow somebody to just do what they want, disrespect is going to creep in, and stuff going to fall apart. And that is what we're seeing in Dominica, where we've given these guys carte blanche, or they've taken carte blanche, some by force, because they send the police to sit on the people's neck at the slightest indication of dissent. So they do it by force. When you come back, we're going to dive deeper into it, guys. My guest tonight on this weekend interview is Miss Marceline Edwards, and we're talking about how does Dominica look, how does it compare among its peers? The islands in the OECS, the islands that surround Dominica in terms of development, in terms of the quality of life that we can provide for people, or healthcare services, the education, the quality of the roads, just the whole sense of well-being, that someone can relax without alcohol, without a boom boom jam, without all of these things that tend to dull your senses. How, how does life in Dominica compare to life on the other islands in that archipelago of nations? So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. Let's get a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Presented by. People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
How much Dominican history do you know? Want to learn some fun facts? We have a great and fun way to test your knowledge and learn more about our history. Get your copy of Dominic Anu, Dominica in Puzzle. Fun for the whole family. Available now on Amazon.com. Visit pushpast10.com to learn more. Email us at dominicainpuzzle@gmail.com or call 877-698-9894. Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com, or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
Welcome back, folks, and thanks for staying with us through the break. And thank you to our sponsors for staying with us through the years on this weekend interview. We are continuing our investigation, our reporting on Passportgate, where from the reports that we've been analyzing, it appears that there is some $2 billion US, or over 5 billion EC dollars that are unaccounted for from the Dominican sale of passports. And with me tonight, my guest is Miss Marceline Edwards, and we are talking about how this money is not showing up in the economy in Dominica. We see some programs from some of the supporters of the Skerritt administration that entitled "How is CBI benefiting Dominica? How is CBI benefiting the economy of Dominica?" And I really want to know how it's benefiting the average Dominican. How is it benefiting the most disadvantaged Dominican? When they go to the hospital and before you get treated, you have to pay for your medication. You know, I have people who go to the hospital and we had to send money down because they were diabetic and they had to pay for their diabetic medication, metformin or whatever it is, so that they would be given their medication in the morning. And that's not something that I hear. This is something that I experience with my family being at the hospital. And so when I hear those stories, I have a reason to believe them because I have experienced them myself, where you go to a hospital and you have to pay for stuff before you can get treated. And it's not like in our times, so you pay 50 cents for some medication at the pharmacy at the hospital. Now the hospital doesn't seem to have any medication, that those things have to be bought at private pharmacies at top dollar. I hope the situation has changed, but I had an interview with the oncologist at the hospital, the doctor who treats cancer patients, and at the time they didn't have a working mammogram machine, or so whatever, it wasn't operational. So women had to go get their screening at private clinics and pay hundreds of dollars to get a private screening. And you know that if cancer, especially breast cancer, with early detection, there's almost 100% survival. With late detection, there's almost 100% non-survival. And so poor people are dying in a time when there is so much additional funds available. We see infrastructure that is not done properly. Dominica is a place where we get a lot of rainfall, and because we are steep, we get a lot of rushing waters. This is 2023. We have computers, we can do computer modeling, we can do all kinds of design that can help us to mitigate the impact of what we know is going to happen. If we know nothing else, we know in the next year, Dominica is going to get two significant rain events at least, and there's going to be flooding. So if you already know that, when you're doing the infrastructural planning for the country, don't you take that into account? Can't you do computer simulation, get the topography and simulate water flowing and design your roads and your bridges and everything so that those things can be taken into account? This is 2023, and it's not because we don't have money. And in that same situation where we have so much access to so much money, the national debt is increasing. We have so much money that is not being spent, so maybe it's being saved, but at the same time, we're going out and borrowing money on behalf of the country. Just this week, last week, we understand that the government is getting approved, cabinet is approving for the government to take a loan of $100 million or more from Saudi Arabia for Roseau enhancement. So where exactly did the CBI funds go? That is what we want to know. We want good accounting. We want accounting that, no, don't just tell me. Also, where you think all those apartment houses come from the sky? I I don't know where it come from. Show me the books. Show me how much money, what was the contract, how much money did you spend, and where the money came from, where it went. That's all we're asking. Don't where you think the airport? Which airport? I mean, they destroy some forest, they grade some land, and everybody says, "Oh, the airport project, the money going there." What airport project? Maslin, you know, we are pretty much free talking because there's so much to talk about. There's so much that can be done better, Maslin. What what's going on?
uh, mm, earlier in the discussion, how many passports or economic citizenship you said that was sold over the last 5 years?
The European Union is reporting 34,500
Okay,
passports.
so 34,000. And when you calculate that, when you look at that, well, that 34,000 is 34,000 citizenship, economic citizenship.
34,000.
It's
I don't know
even
why. I don't know
it's
why
even
you distinguishing that economic, because they clearly say when you pay that money, you have all the rights of citizenship like
okay.
any natural
I
born
will take
Dominican.
I will take that back. 34 they sold 34,000 passports.
Passports. Hmm.
They sold 34,000 passports. Now when you do the math, this is call it more. than half of our indigenous Dominican population in Dominica,
Mhm.
because by way of the census, Dominica does not have 70,000 people by way of that census,
But
because you heard.
even if you give them the 70,000 that they continue to claim, your point you're making
I
is
don't
still
have
very
it,
valid.
because
Yeah.
remember, Skerrit was in a video. I'm calling for people to make more children, because he said Dominica could do with more Dominicans, and I guess that was his call to state that he was actually selling our passports, he
Willy-nilly.
got
Yeah.
like in a frenzy. And so if that $34,000, 34,000 and passports, people who are holding our passports is more than our indigenous population, then where are the billions? So you sold all those passports with billions of dollars everywhere except in the treasury in Dominica, where it's supposed to be
But
legally.
it's supposed to be. Mhm.
That's where it's supposed to be legally. So now, how is that CBI that is quickly forcing indigenous Dominicans? And you realize I am stressing on indigenous Dominicans because that's the people's sovereign assets. The returns
Yes.
of those sovereign assets should be for the benefit and well-being of the Dominican people, indigenous Dominicans. So from what I can see, or what is happening, is that CBI, which is organized this organized crime under the banner of economic citizenship, CBI, that is quickly forcing indigenous Dominicans to become second-class citizens in their own land. And thus,
Exactly.
this is returning them to the colonial era,
Colonial
the
era.
colonial
And
era
Maslin,
of slavery.
Maslin, let me just even highlight it even more. Do you know that one of the clauses they have in the sale of passport is that the citizenship transfers to their descendants?
Hmm.
So if you have 34,000 people that you sold passports to, and 20,000 of them have two children, that is the original 20 plus 40. That is 60,000.
No. Did they categorize the children as to what ages? Because when you
No,
become
no.
a citizen,
They said that if you become a citizen, if you buy the passport, your
yeah.
children are automatically okay. So they sell it to you. Like if your family is family of five or whatever, your family buys, right? But your children are,
But I
are
but I understand.
automatically Dominican.
No, but I understand that well. I understand what you're saying well. But you remember the other day, the crime minister was drawing the comparison with America's citizenship and the citizenship and the CBI. He said it's no difference, it's the same. But when you become a citizen of the United States, is that citizenship of yours transferable to your children? It is not transferable. So that is just nonsense.
The thing about it is that I have something on Facebook that I did, like said, I can't believe it's not Trump. And I have Skerritt's picture on it. So there's no need to even repeat some of the things that he says, because the same way
Mm.
we dismiss what this guy say.
Yeah.
But no, there's no comparison. In the US, you get a green card. And after you've had residency for 5 years, you apply for naturalization. Okay. There may be some instances where you get instant citizenship, but it's a very high bar that you have to
It's
cross
not.
to
It's
reach
not
that.
the
So
same.
there's no comparison between what is happening with the sale of Dominican citizenship and what is happening, not
But
almost not
but
even on our neighboring islands, in terms of the way some of the other islands are doing their due diligence and being look. We just heard that St. Kitts has to revoke is revoking people that they sold passports to, they revoking it. Have we ever heard of anybody getting a Dominican passport and their citizenship was revoked?
Hmm. But we have not heard that. And then and that is why we firmly believe that if we do not hold this governments responsible, if we do not hold them accountable, that is the word
Accountable.
I can do, accountable, then they have the carte blanche to do whatever they want, to
Lastly,
return to
we
the
almost
colonial
at
era.
the end of the program, but I want us to really spend. We're going to go a little bit beyond. I really want us to continue the comparison. I
and,
want
and
people
that
to
is and
understand
that is where
how
and that
Dominica
is
is
where I am
different. Yeah.
that is where
Mhm.
I am coming. That is where I am taking the conversation. Because if you look at our CBI program that has raked in billions of dollars, just like the other Caribbean islands, the only exception is that we are seeing the development in the rest of the Caribbean that does not exist in Dominica. So examples, our port of entries. Our port of entries is just a far cry from the rest of the Caribbean, because when you get in the ports, you recently I you said you have not been to Dominica in a bit, but I've been to Dominica both through the airport and the seaport. Now that seaport, when you get in the port in Roseau, you get off that boat. When you get off in that little narrow passage, it reminds you of the slave trade. It reminds you that when the slaves were taken off of the boat, when they huddled them in that little narrow passage,
Gallery.
and it is hot. They do not have proper fans. They have two little fans that you would probably put on in your home, two little home fans, and the immigration is as slow as what. Nothing is work. The things. One of the lines that aren't working, and this has been like that for the longest. So when you have this whole place that's just people are just spilling in because people come in during the Creole festival, and it's just like a stampede, and it's just a mess. And when you look at that, you look around the little narrow place where you have to pull your bags through. It's like, and they put 3 rows of chains, 3 rows of, so that you pass through that.
Hmm.
You can barely
Hmm.
pull your luggage. And you're saying, but look at what we have become after 20 years, a government in office for 20 years, with so much of the CBI largesse. And then when you look, we have another area that is the housing the housing project in Dominica. When you compare the Dominica's housing project, this is a form of Dominicans losing their uh, their uh, their their legacy. Because when you lose your lands that you owned, that was in your possession, you had those lands, you had your certificate of title, and those lands are taken away from you. You have actually lost your family legacy, because you're
Yep.
taken off from your lands where you had a title, where that parcel of land that you owned as a Dominican. You are forced out of those private lands to take up lodging in a government's housing program, where they have where Dominicans have absolutely no ownership by
You
way
have
of
no ownership.
certificate of title,
You have
as a
no ownership.
replacement.
Yeah.
And
If
when you look
tomorrow,
at
Martin, if you were living in one of those houses and you come on TDN now as my guest, tomorrow they'll
yes,
put you out.
you're out. And I drove by the government owned which is the voting catching boxes in Bath Estate there. And those apartments are already in a dilapidated state, and there are pictures to prove. But if you have to compare, the housing, the Dominica housing project, to that of St. Kitts, because St. Kitts has a similar housing project, and it is not done like that. When the people, they have a housing program, but the difference is the people become homeowners. Those who qualify
Owners.
for those
Hmm.
houses, they
Hmm.
become homeowners by paying for those properties and owning them and owning them, unlike Dominicans. And we have a lot to contrast. During the hurricane, Dominica got, you know, a lot of funds to assist the Dominican people to cover their homes. Until now, there are people who had never gotten their homes replaced. They are still under tarpaulins. St. Kitts, the other day, the government, they had a program where they decided to share the CBI with the people of St. Kitts. What did they do? The government provided the workmanship. They provided the material for people who had issues with their roofs to get them covered. They provided that. In, and you know, I like to contrast this with St. Kitts because St. Kitts has a thriving CBI program. Look, you just mentioned that they were returning some of the proceeds based on persons who had obtained CBI passports. They made some, you know, and St. Kitts, what they have done, when you look at the past government that was it, they gave the civil servants a double salary at Christmas. In December, they gave them
Can you
that.
imagine that? Yeah.
All of that came from the CBI. All of that. St. Kitts, they usually have a VAT tax free day, where there are days when you have those VAT tax, you don't pay any taxes, any VAT. So let's take, for example, you want to purchase a vehicle. You go to the car dealership. You see that a vehicle costs $100,000, and they have the VAT. The VAT is like 15% or 17% thereby. You can actually save that 17% that you would not have otherwise saved if you did not get that VAT free day. So you save that $17,000. So in other words, if you were to buy that on a normal day, you were to buy that vehicle for $117,000 because you would have to pay the VAT. On those days, if you go to buy that vehicle on the day, you actually keep in your pocket $17,000. Now,
Yep.
all of that is from the people's CBI. They have a thriving tourism industry, and these people they have just blown out Dominica out of the way. And they have garbage collection. People don't have to pay to collect the garbage. Look, they just purchase new garbage trucks so that the state of St. Kitts does not become a labas, because they value their country and their tourism
And their
product.
people. Yeah.
And the people. So all of that, it's the people getting their fair share of the pie. Now, just take for example, how many times the people of St. Kitts have changed their government. They have changed their government like 3 times in the in
Three
the in the
times.
last 20
Hmm.
years.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because if this government look at their their pay wage. Dominica own is, you compare $9 per hour to $4 per hour in Dominica.
Wow.
Nine
More
dollars
than
per
more
hour
than twice.
to $4 per hour. And yet still, the people of St. Kitts do not take that kind of nonsense. They don't toe those lines. If they realize that you are not doing what they elected you to do, next election you are gone.
Right.
They don't sit there and taking that nonsense. And look at St. Kitts. They have an increase in air traffic. And last month, JetBlue was added to their flight itinerary. So they have constructed their hotels. They recently Ramada Hotel to accommodate the additional guests. Now look at St. Kitts. St. Kitts just has an average of, say, 50,000 people. I understood tropical shipping operates into St. Kitts weekly with no less than 80 containers, sometimes up to 80 containers. So that speaks to the vibrancy of their
Of
economy.
the economy,
It
certainly.
speaks to that. And people just, yet the people still feel that at $9 per hour is still an insult. So just imagine that, as I said, if they're working for $4 an hour, like Dominicans, and
They'll
we
be on the
sit
street
there,
rioting.
yeah, and we sit there and we wait for what? In the past 20 years, look at the number of times they changed their government. Look at the last what happened last recently. We remembered what happened recently. The government only lasted 2 years. 2 years.
Right.
And these people, I think that these people are getting quite a great deal. So if you have a country with a proper flight itinerary, a country that where you can go to at ease, you can travel seamlessly, what would be your choice? Would you choose to go vacation in a country where you have to take how many planes to get there? Or you just decide, okay, I'm going to take the flight from JFK into St. Kitts, or
Into St.
Canada
Kitts
into St.
or
Kitts,
Grenada. Yeah, Grenada has
or
daily
Grenada,
flights from
or what
JFK.
have you.
Hmm.
But look at what has happened to us. And we are talking about wasting more of our resources. We are building an airport that we don't know when that airport is going to complete. You're an engineer, Anthony. Uh, I don't know how on earth they have decided to put this airport and how much it's going to cost. But then we are just seeing that we are just burdened on the loans after loans, and everything is a big dark secret.
It's a
The,
big
the-
dark secret. I mean, who
big
who
dark
who starts
secret.
who starts to build a house without a plan, without a set of plans and
Exactly.
detailed contracts, and so you're building something
Exactly.
as complex as an airport without proper planning, without proper plans, without testing, EIA survey, nothing. Just
Nothing.
basic. I mean, how do you just put Caterpillar in stuff and just start to grade and start to do this and do that and the
Nothing.
other? Come on.
And then even with the mammoth loan that they said was approved by Saudi Arabia. They spoke about this mammoth loan, but while you're taking a mammoth loan, there are no plans in place, no
Please,
physical plans in
what
place
exactly are you going to
that will
do?
say, well,
Mhm.
okay, this is what we presented to them
In the loan
for
application. Yeah. Mhm.
for Roseau to bring Roseau like a tongue, a real normal upgraded tongue, a tongue that suits the current time, like the tongues in cities all over the world. There's nothing presented, no plans, anything. And then you decide, how did you come up with the cost? How did you come up with that cost? What did you present? What is it going to take to
So Martin,
how
let's
did you
put
come
this
up with the cost?
let's put this thing in perspective, right? Once upon a time, we were going to do a project in Roseau, and so we decided to measure Roseau. We started at the bridge on Queen Mary Street, just as you enter in Roseau proper, and we measured over to the cemetery at the foot of Kings Hill. That's only 1 mile. Then we went on the bayfront, and we measured up to my police station. Those are the extent of Roseau. Another mile. So Roseau is approximately 1 mile by 1 mile. 1 mile by 1 mile. And let's say you have what, how many streets? Maybe let's be generous and say 10 streets in both directions. So 10 miles of road going north-south, 10 miles of road going east-west, a total of 20 miles of road. I mean, what exactly are you spending $100 million on? Right?
And
Yeah, maybe you want to do a theater, you probably want to do whatever it is, but why do you need a loan of $100 million to give Rosa a facelift when really what we should be doing is looking at preservation of our architecture, preservation of the way of life, make Roseau maybe a non-driving city. So therefore, you need a little trolley system or some kind of thing so people can park outside of Roseau, and you have a little shuttle system that takes you and for Rosa to do what you want to do. It's a mile by a mile. It's almost somebody's backyard, you know. Uh,
But
uh, that is the thing that is the thing that we want to put in perspective, you know. You have you have that kind of money, but your scale is so small. Where smallness is an advantage is there, because if you have $5 billion to spend, you have one hospital, you have 10 schools, you have 20 miles of road. Everything should be first class because you haven't got much to spend. You understand? So when you really put it in perspective, and you understand that the government has access to all that revenue, and what they have to spend it on is not much. How many hospitals can you build with $5 billion? How many schools can you upgrade with $5 billion? How many roads, how many miles of road can you properly do with $5 billion? When you think about it, in this government wants to stay in power forever, they can stay in power forever if they would just do what they need to do, and people's life would be so sweet they wouldn't even bother to try to change the government. But but instead, you have these folks who think that Dominicans do not deserve Dominicans do not deserve a better quality of life. Dominicans do not deserve to drive on a certain type of roads. Nowadays, every time there's an accident, a car is upside down. It's on its head. If that doesn't spell bad engineering, nothing else that will. Every time somebody loses control, your car is upside down.
but let me Drago, the roads is another issue.
Yeah, what
That
was your
is
experience driving in Dominica? Because
serious,
you were there
serious.
recently.
The
Mhm.
roads a serious death trap, because from since Hurricane Maria, there are drums and yellow tapes on the
Wow.
roads
Wow.
that are still there. The roads that were damaged, especially when you're traversing the road from the airport into Roseau through the Pocasset area. There are some dangerous valleys on that road.
Wow.
There are no barricades, and there are the drums are still on the roads, and it's only the will of, you really have that will for you to, make it into town and make sure that there's no you don't meet, the vehicles anywhere near those areas. And there's another problem where I don't see you know those roads aren't going to hold up much longer, because you have those big trucks, with all that, heavy moving of soil, and tarish and equipment and everything, traversing those roads. So some of the bridges have even started sinking, and
Wow.
some of the areas have started sinking, and it's just a matter of time. From what I can see, Dominica, it's like a curse has befallen the jam. And I can't understand why every aspect of Dominica has just fallen apart like that. And there's nothing. No one is this government does not have, well, I would not say the foresight. I don't know what is wrong with this group of people. But the Roseau Library is still in the same dilapidated state. So you want to tell me that there's only one main library in Dominica, and it is in a dilapidated condition, like since after Hurricane Maria. And I'm wondering if that property isn't sold to a private person, because you had public works is not functioning. This has been more or less, vicinity, or the area where public works was situated is sold. It's
I
sold to
understand
private
that. It's,
persons.
that's crazy, you know?
And then you have the public library, and now you have the botanical gardens, it's just going. And I'm wondering, why is it that this government is so, crazy. They're so quick to change the landscape of Dominica. Why are they changing, the what's the everything that relates Dominicans with their country? You have those national landmarks that are being, demarcated. You had the house of Jean Rice. Look at what happened to that property. And then you see those massive structures coming up all over, and you don't know who those massive structures belong to. Yet we have our hospital that seem to be privatized, because if you cannot get a scan done at the hospital, you cannot get the lab work done at the hospital, you cannot get anything done at the hospital, you can't even get your report at the end of your hospital stay, you can't even, not even that you can get, then
Wow.
why is it that you just leave, or you have just neglected the hospital? And is that intentional, so that some private person can get the business? Who owns the lab that, you know that all governments, all every test and every, it has to go to that place. Who owns
Right.
it? And then, you find that, the government has a responsibility to provide those services for the Dominican people, because this is not just a responsibility but an obligation. But you even that they have neglected their obligation. And you wonder why. What is happening? That What has happened? You don't have we no longer have our indigenous Dominican doctors who can understand the lingo of Dominicans. So when you come in there, then you can really understand what is going on with the patient. But you have Spanish doctors, and you have all sorts of persons who do not understand the Dominicans, the average Dominican's dialect. And as a
Right.
result, the average Dominican, when he or she enters the hospital, you cannot even communicate with those professionals who are there, because how are you going to communicate someone who you do not understand the language they speak, and they don't understand the language you speak, and they have no interpreter to interpret for the patient, nor the professional? So I want to think that, is on that premise you get a lot of malpractice. Because if you come to the hospital and I told you, well, I just took my medication before I came to the hospital, and you can't understand, what I just said to you, and then you prescribe more
More
medication, and you
medication,
dump
right?
it in my system, then it's going to shut down my kidneys. It's going to put me in renal failure. It is either going to cause a heart attack. And then you see people who check in at the hospital for the simplest of reasons. Then, the next thing you heard is like the patient died.
They
And
didn't make it
this
out of
just
there.
leaves people in awe. So I believe the language, the barrier, the communication, where the people cannot communicate to the doctor, and the doctor cannot communicate to the patient, because neither of the two knows what they're saying to each other. I think that is something major. And I don't understand why our indigenous doctors aren't the ones in the hospital, communicating, treating, and dealing with our indigenous Dominicans, because our our indigenous doctors, they understand the Dominican patients, because even before they open them up, they know exactly where the patient
Yeah.
is coming from, what he's going to say, what he's trying to explain. But a foreign doctor, with that language barrier, is not going to understand the lingo of the Dominican.
We're talking on the basic
They're
level.
enough.
We're not even talking about on the deeper level where you say, well, okay, you understand the person culturally, and you can counsel
Yeah,
somebody in terms of their food and their eating. We haven't even gotten there. We're
yeah.
talking about the basic, well, just a language thing. Doc, I took my medication, or I am on this medication, or I whatever. You, you cannot communicate with your doctor. It's almost as if it's a war zone, like you're in Gaza right now,
Yes,
and
it is.
everybody, whichever doctor that comes, and they're just trying to make do. It cannot be the normal everyday situation in your only hospital that you have in your country, that you have a language barrier between the majority of your population and the people who are providing healthcare. How can the master when and we have to we wrap up at 9:30. But the question that I have is, how does anybody look at those things that are going on in Dominica and see that there is room there to support? You know what I mean? That if you are a Dominican and you have fellow Dominicans, your mother, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever it is, and I mean, have we lost the ability to stand back and to look and to assess and make a decision? I have been likening this thing to a God. The only person that people give a free pass is God, that
Mm-hmm.
lightning strike your child and kill your child, and you don't curse God, you say, well, God know what He doing. So therefore you don't, that's the only person or being I know that people do that with. That no matter what the person does, no matter what the outcome is, you give that person a free pass. And you even know that person even know in advance that they can do whatever they do, my supporters will give me
Yeah.
a free pass. What how is that even possible? And it is so obvious that we are being recolonized. And as I said,
Yeah.
in my definition of colonialism is that when the resources of a country is being used for the benefit of another person, another country, that's colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
They used to use our people to grow tobacco, to grow sugar, to do whatever. And England used to benefit from it while people were being produced in poverty. Isn't that the same thing that's happening? That all our
Yes, it
resources
is.
are being used for the benefit of somebody. We are being recolonized. And how can we sit and watch that happen?
And another thing, from what I observe, that's happening to our rivers. There's something going on in all the rivers. The rivers look like they have cried so much that the tears have dried up.
Because they're
Because
harvesting all the rocks out of the rivers.
when you look at the rivers, they look like they're crying out. They're in a sorry state. Our rivers are not flowing with that velocity
Vibrancy,
that
yeah.
it's
Hmm.
not like that. And you wonder what happened, because you just see Dominica has just changed. It has just transformed. And it has Dominica has become, the natural, you know rivers that would just flow. And you just watch that the streams go by, and it's like everything has just changed. The topography.
I've seen the photos, Marceline. I see what you talk about. I
Yeah.
think it's because they've harvested all the rocks from the rivers, so they look more like canals than they look like rivers.
Yes, they do. And then you wonder, it's like, where did our rivers go? Where did the joy that flowed in our rivers? Sometimes you hear the river flowing, and you just listen to that those water gushing. You don't even,
Hmm.
it's like our rivers get so tired. And
They're
our
canals. They're
rivers look
becoming
lethargic,
canals
like the
rather than
economy.
rivers. Because
And
they took out all the major rocks out of the rivers.
yeah, so it's the roads, everything has just taken a hit. And you're building an international airport. So w- when are you going to start working on the roads? because if you can't even maintain the road infrastructure that has been, uh, destroyed since Hurricane Maria, then how are you telling me, how are you going to maintain that international airport? How are you going to do all of the things that when you do the billions of dollars and budgets, you pass it in parliament? How this is, when you pass that in our parliament, how is it going to get done?
Yeah,
Because everywhere has just fallen apart, and
things fall
these
apart.
people, it has just fallen apart. And
Yeah.
when you look at the sidewalks, you look at the sidewalks, Rosso is crumbling block by block, brick by brick.
Hmm.
Everything is just a mess. Not one road, not one street is being paved to say, well, okay, at least they paved that street. Everything is just, I can't understand how a people can run a country to the ground. You actually run the country to the ground. And when you talk out like that, they say you're crying down your country. No, but how can you sit and look at those things and know the largesse that these people have in of our CBI dollars? The resources belong to the people, and if you use the people's resources to punish the people, punish them, you promise their children scholarships, and you don't pay their tuition with all the CBI largesse that there is, and then the children have to come back. The parents have no jobs. They have to remain tight-lipped because they can't say anything, because they will lose the little handouts that they're going to get. And you tell me that is not abuse, gross abuse, and
Definite
disrespect of
colonization.
the
Hmm.
Dominican people. How can you
Hmm.
claim to love your people, to love your citizens, and you treat them like that? They have no jobs. The wage is small. Right now, Dominica is under low shedding, you know, no electricity. You have no electricity. So a country that cannot provide basic goods and services to its citizens is a failed country. And because our people are not, are not up, are not, in the streets and, rising up, it's not a failed country. And then you have the, as you said earlier, you have the police that, who are tolerating crimes by having this government, the biggest lawbreakers of the land, go free. And this is a sad situation. So if we people just sit by and they can't see those things, to be what is destroying Dominica, what is putting Dominica in bad light, then I don't know what kind of nation we are when we say that we are a Christian nation and we're supposed to stand up for truth and righteousness. I don't know what kind of nation, what
And
kind of people we have become.
and in your travels, you did not see a similar. I know you passed through, so you're not there for an extended period of time. But when you go to a place, you can tell from the way the people express themselves, the ease with which they
Yeah.
smile, and their warmth and so on. You can tell folks who are living a relaxed life. Everywhere they
Yes.
struggle, everybody has to thrive to live. That's what nature is. You have to thrive to live. If you stop thriving, you die. So that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is folks who are aspirational, folks who wake up and they're positive, and that energy emanates from them.
Mhm.
You did you feel as we close up, Maslin? Just talk about the vibe, that the energy that you feel while you were in, I guess Antigua, St. Lucia, Barbados, um, and versus when you were in Dominica.
Man, it's like, it's just embarrassing. Because one of the things that we should never do is think that, or never believe, is believe that the natural beauty of our country is development. The natural beauty of our country is the innate beauty. It's like, the clothing of our country that was
Hmm.
created
Hmm.
by God. to give our country that distinction, that identity. You cannot take that away from the country, the greenness, the lushness. You cannot take that away. You can't take away the beautiful mountains from the country, but you cannot call it development. You go there, you say, oh, Dominica is so beautiful. Yes, but Dominica is beautiful, but the way of life of the people that has been injured by poverty, by lack of jobs, by the mendicancy. If the people are not treated like how they are supposed to be treated with dignity, treated with respect, treated to the rights to happiness. If they are not treated like that, then you cannot have a resilient people. You cannot then talk about a resilient nation if your citizens are not resilient, if they do not even have the simple necessity as a proper working healthcare system, then how can you say your people are resilient? It's just a matter of time before everything just falls apart. And like how our people are just dying like flies, and because the healthcare system is not worthy, they themselves have proven, the people in government who have created that healthcare system for Dominicans, they have proven to Dominicans that they should not trust it, because the system that they have created for Dominicans, they do not
They don't
they do
use it.
not use it. So
No.
that tells you that that system is for them, for Dominicans, and not for those who have
Well,
created it.
not for
And
us.
and
Yep.
that is one of the things that we should watch. A nation without health is a sick nation. If you do not have health, you cannot have wealth. And a lot of times we said, like, what recommendations do you have for this government, to better things in Dominica? Well, I'll draw this conclusion, this analysis, or how you would put it. If you have you work as an engineer, you work in the construction business here in the US, and then you have seen and heard of properties with black mold. If black mold gets into the foundation of your property, then what do you do with that property? You tear it down.
Yep.
You don't go and just
Paint over
continue
it or put
living there.
sheetrock
You
over it.
tear it
No.
down. And sometimes you have to abandon that property because you cannot this thing is so toxic, you cannot build on that. So that is the same. I see that as like this government as a government that is comparable to that same poisonous, toxic black mold. And the only thing that we can do is to remove this government, remove this foundation, this terrible foundation they have created that has destroyed the country, destroyed our institutions, because that same black mold has found its way in our institutions. It has found its way even in our constitution, the constitution of our land, that is no longer functioning for the benefit of the Dominican people and the country. Because you go into parliament and you do what you want. You chose to break the law. You chose a speaker who will who operates like a gangster. So it's like a mob like government, and as a result, you get mob like governance. You get mob like results. And if you're not
Hmm.
supporting the mob, then they come after you to cut your throat, to get rid of you. And this is exactly what has happened to the Dominican people and their businesses. And when I say cut the throat, I'm not talking about physically cut the throat, but when you cut, you take away you create so much hardship that the indigenous Dominican business cannot thrive. It cannot function, and that indigenous business has to close down. The investors have to lose their monies. You
Hmm.
actually cut the financial viability. You cut the financial breath out. And look at what happened to the Garaway Hotel. Look at it is up for sale.
Top for
There
sale.
was reading an article, and then you have all of those hotels that have not been able to open their doors from since after Maria. But every time you turn around, you hear of a new hotel coming. You see new structures coming, and then that CBI money is just not in circulation. When that CBI could have gone to some of those hoteliers so that the doors could remain open, and those same quaint little hotels that were accustomed of employing Dominicans, they could continue employing Dominicans. So all of that could grow the economy, because you need the small businesses of the private sector to grow the economy. You cannot kill the private sector and expect that the economy is going to do well. And you cannot kill agriculture. You cannot kill everything that you met in, the Dominican people living comfortably, right? Sending the kids to school, earning their livelihood, paying their mortgages. You cannot take it away from them and create one illegal industry, which is the organized crime under the CBI, called the sales of the passports. And you create that industry for a certain set, while the rest of the
Yes,
country die,
it's
the
it's
rest of
it's
the
what we
country
call
perish.
in America gentrification.
Yes, it is.
That's what's
It
happening
is
in Dominica is
gentrification.
gentrification, where these people who have power see an area that they like. Where in US usually it's a black community that black people have built up, and they're enjoying a certain quality of life, and certain people decide, that is too good for them. We're going to take it away
Yeah,
from them. So the first thing they do, they start to shut down the good schools, and they start to over police, and they stop fixing the roads, and they close down the hospitals, and they take away all the services that is required in that community. So you know what happens? The more affluent people in the community leave because they don't want to raise their children in that environment. And so it just gets worse and it spirals until the property value falls and people come and buy the property, buy you out, make it uncomfortable for you. And before you know it, the makeup of that community has changed. That is gentrification. And we are watching that happen in Dominica before our
yes, it
eyes.
is.
And
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 then
and we and it's very serious.
we talk about 45 years of independence. We have no right to celebrate no 45 years of independence. You're celebrating your Dominicanness. This is not independence,
Yeah.
because they're the by they're the byproducts of independence. And
Yeah.
are
It's
we
sad
is
that,
that
there's so
function in
much
our society? It's not.
to talk about, and as we said tonight, it is so stark because we have examples of our neighbors who are doing
Yes.
different and who show us what can be done or what should be done. Martin, I'm going to ask you to do your closing remarks. I'm not sure if they are, I'm sure they are, because there's so much to talk about. But you know, just some of your thoughts, as because we spent the last hour and a half just
Yeah.
just lamenting about how better it can be, however how better it should be. So I'm going to ask you to make a few closing remarks before we shut down here tonight.
I wrote a book,
You wrote
and
a poem.
yes,
Okay.
and let me, I think I have it. Yeah. And maybe if we could just bring ourselves back, to what Dominica used to be. Just bring ourselves back to what Dominica used to be. What we remember of Dominica. Maybe we would speak up more. We would be more concerned about what is happening to Dominica, and then we would stand up and take back our country, because I think we have forgotten what our country used to be like, and how good it is. But as
While
I
you're
said,
setting up to get the poem, there's some
yes,
comments. What is the quality of life has become of the primary healthcare system, which was established in the 80s? Such a sad situation. Rise up and take a good look and act on it. That's one of the comments that we're getting. We have our usual folks, the usual suspects, the Easter. We have Sharon, we have Martha, we have Alvin, a number of folks who are tuned in listening tonight and appreciating the conversation that we're having. We have Clint, um, and folks are already talking about that's a conversation that needs to be continued. I'm getting a lot of comments on WhatsApp as well. We have Lucille, says she's locked in from Miami. Hannah says good night, Maslin, Hannah West. Um, Alvin was I already mentioned Alvin. Samantha White Phillip, a government representative should be on with his or her spreadsheet to allow some transparency for the spent monies. That's exactly what we are demanding, Samantha. Transparency, and even even starting before that, a sense of understanding from the government that that accountability is not an option. It's an obligation by law. They are supposed to report to us. Martin, let me know when you're ready with the poem. Alvin said it's bad governance. Um, our whole environment has been compromised. So folks, the discussion is resonating with them. The idea is that we give you the information, but we have to take action. We have to take action if we want to see change. And what the government is saying, well, if we're doing so bad, how comes we win in elections? But people always find a way to measure and justify what they do. The elections in Iran, you know, the elections in Russia, the elections in North Korea. So elections in and of itself is not an indication that people support you. Just let's just leave it at that. Martin, you ready? I have your poem.
Uh,
Did you
that
find
poem
it?
says that some cannot find me. I don't know. I don't know.
You'll have to bring it if you next time then.
Yeah, I
Let,
had
let's
it.
get some closing. Let's get some
I
closing
had it
remarks,
today, but
and
it's
then
not
we
there
can.
now.
It's
So
almost 10 o'clock. Mhm.
yes. So what I would say to the Dominican people is that this country belongs to us. We cannot be so passive. We cannot be so loyal to politicians who destroy our country. And we see that we are losing, we have lost our grip on our country, but we remain so divided. We can't bring ourselves to coming together, but we have to start thinking unity and purpose. We have to start thinking country and patriotism. We have to start thinking democracy and independence, not dependence. And until we start thinking along those lines, where we can stand up for truth and righteousness, where we can hold our governments accountable, we can say to them that this is our country. You have done wrong. We want answers. We are going to give you a timeline, a time frame by which you proffer those answers. And if you do not give us those answers, then we are going to get you out of office.
And get you into
Until we
jail.
decide to
Yeah.
until we decide to stay on the streets and make that sacrifice, man, woman, and child, then this is the only way we can do it. Until we decide that we're going to do it, then these guys will not take us seriously. This is the only way we can bring back our healthcare system. We can bring back our country to a productive country, not a country of just lethargy all the time and dependency all the time. After 45 years, we are still taking loans. We have all our resources outside of the country, and we think we are independent. That is not independence, because when you're independent, you leave your parents' home. You're independent. You don't run back to your parents' home every meal you want to eat, because when you become an adult, you have to stand on your own 2 feet. So this is what we have to do as a people. We have to take back our country, take our country back from the clutches of those who have our country hostage. We have to believe that our country is worth fighting for. And until we fight for our freedom and liberties, it is not going to be just available to us, especially when we see that these people are destined to make us second class, to bring us back into slavery, to be our colonial masters. Our foreparents have paid that price for us. They preserved that little piece of land, that little piece of rock for us. We should never close a blind eye to it. We should take what is happening to the Palestinian people as an example. We cannot be a nation without a home. We cannot be a citizenry without a place called home. This is what we have. Let us preserve it. Let us stand up for Dominica. Let us do our utmost to let these people understand that the people who put them in power are the power. We are the power of the nation, not them. We are stronger than their power because there's a lot of us. We just have to come together as a people to take back our country. So I just want to thank everyone who tuned in tonight, and let us have that discussion going. Let us do what we got to do. Let us support each other. And Anthony, tremendous thanks to you. It's always a privilege, always a pleasure to be on our radio station, our diaspora coolest radio station. So
Thank
may
you for
God
that,
bless us
Maslin.
as a people.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
May
so
God
much. And
bless you. Thank you.
thanks, and you too. I really appreciate the conversation we had tonight, and it was a conversation. It was a conversation where it wasn't scripted; it was spoken from the heart. It was also based on what you experience. Alvin says, "Well said, my sister. More
Thank
power
you.
to the strong Dominican woman like you, Maslin."
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
that is what we're saying, that we have to really take stock of who we are. We are Dominican, and Dominicans are supposed to be strong. We are descendants of strong people.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of us, our Kalinago people, were strong. They were the only one who survived the onslaught of the Europeans. Our
Mm-hmm.
African ancestors survived that brutal trip across, and they survived hundreds of years of slavery, and they triumphed
Mm-hmm.
because they managed to wrestle control and ownership of some of the best real estate on the planet. The Caribbean region is the best real estate on the planet, and Dominica is some of the best real estate in the Caribbean. And these people were able, they came in as an enslaved people, but they managed to take it over. And so that's what we have to do. We have to take over the
Mm-hmm.
control of the country and the control of the resources. It's a shame that they handed us this heritage that they fought so hard for, and we're giving it back in two, maybe three generations. We cannot even keep it for 50 years. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they were enslaved for 400 years, and they won it for us, and we're giving it back in less than 50 years. It's as if you work all your life and you toil and you struggle to give your kids something that they can start with, and the first thing they do is to just blow it, and they're
It's
back to you're back to the situation that you wanted to avoid them experiencing. That's what we're doing, really. We are allowing these folks to mortgage and to squander and to give away the heritage our, our forebears struggled and won for us. As Dominicans, we need to stand up. Somebody asked about the primary healthcare system. And Dr. Etienne is credited with being one of the pioneers and the managers of that system. And I watched Dr. Etienne stand next to the Prime Minister, and he's saying that Dominica has a state-of-the-art healthcare system. And by her presence and by her words, she's supporting that point of view. How can you watch decades of your sweat and blood be squandered and dismantled, and you stand there and give tacit support. Dominicans, that's what we have. We see folks who their parents struggled doing bananas and huckstering to send them to school. They get a degree and they come back to Dominica now. And it seems like they all place their degree on a platter and hand it over to the government. I'm your servant. Do what you want. I will always support you no matter what.
Hmm.
That should not be. It, once upon a time there was a real Labour Party in power. They had housing schemes, and we see the evidence of the housing scheme. People had ownership of their homes, they could take loans, they expanded their homes, they turned it from wood to block. They could take the title and go to the bank and get a mortgage, start a business, send their kids to school, do whatever it is they wanted to do. Now this government has you living in a place where they refuse to give you your ownership papers. At the very least, we need to demand that you get your ownership papers. But they have no intention of giving you ownership papers because they will have to change some laws to deal with condominiums and co-op houses. So, folks, let us take good stock. Let us, it's not nobody's asking you to do a heavy lift. They just want you to do whatever you can, whatever that is within reach of your sphere of influence. But just do it in a way that conks. Do it with integrity. Do it with honor. Do it with the well-being of your fellow Dominican in mind. That's all. We got some first-hand knowledge as to what's happening in some of the other islands versus what is not happening in Dominica. Are you happy with that? Let this government know that we want accountability for the revenues that's generated from the sales of our passports. Tell us it's not $5 billion. Tell us what it is and show us the books, show us the audited accounts. And we will agree that we were wrong. But until then, we're going to agree that we were right. And probably it's even more than we think it is. You owe that to the people. You cannot just ignore the people. You cannot just say it's not your damn business and all of those other things. You cannot just say I run things. No, you have an obligation to give account, audited account for the people's revenue. So, folks, tonight I want to say thank you to my guests, Maslin, very passionate, always bringing her voice, unafraid, and saying it as she sees it, and that's what we appreciate. Candor and not hyperbole and not exaggeration, just clear, sober assessment of what she sees when she traveled, how she felt as a Dominican, and seeing all the other islands and then coming to Dominica. And folks, let's take it for what it is, and we get the information, we have the information. Let us decide what can we do? What can we do tomorrow? What can we do tonight? What can we do? Is there an organization that we can support? Are there people that we can encourage? Are there steps that we can take? Because if we don't, Dominica will revive as a nature isle, but it will no longer belong to us. We will have given our heritage away and we'll be in another man's land, trying to sing a song in a strange man's land. And without that anchor that we have, all of us are in the US or wherever we are. And you're like, well, if things get bad enough, we can go home. But there may not be a home if we don't do something very soon. So, folks, I want to say good night. I want to say thank you to you for staying on and for sharing. We will continue Passportgate. Next week, we're going to talk about debt, how much debt Dominica has incurred, even while there's evidence of all of this $5 billion that we had access to in the last few years. Why are we still taking loans? Why is the Dominican debt continuing to increase? Why do we have to borrow $100 million to give Rosa a facelift? Why? What? Every time there is a different story about where funding is coming from. Tell us, show us, expose it, remove the doubt, because you are upfront and open. So, folks, Good night. Thank you to my team. We are a team of three that produces this weekend interview, and so um, it's my pleasure to come and spend that time with you. Have a good night, folks, and we'll do this again next week, Wednesday, for another episode of This Week in Interview. Thanks again to my guest, Miss Marceline Edwards. Good night.